Good morning and welcome to this summer chapel service at Fountain Street Church. I'm Margie Dirks Peterson. I am your clergy for the summer, and I want to welcome you all here and in the ether world out there for being with us this morning. The invitation this morning is from the Wisdom of Solomon. I called on God, and the spirit of wisdom came to me. I preferred her to scepters and thrones, and I accounted wealth as nothing in comparison with her. Neither did I liken her to any priceless gem, because all gold is but a little sand in her sight, and silver will be accounted as clay before her. I loved her more than health and beauty, and I chose to have her rather than light, because her radiance never ceases. All good things came to me along with her, and in her hands uncounted wealth. I rejoiced in them all, because wisdom leads them, but I did not know that she was their mother. I learned without guile, and I impart without grudging. I do not hide her wealth, for it is an unfailing treasure for mortals. Please join us in our gathering hymn, number 327. I guess we won't do the German verses. There are a few people in here who might manage it. The ancient witness this morning comes from Red Jacket, Seneca Chief. It was delivered in 1805 to a Boston missionary. Brother, you say there is but one way to worship and serve the Great Spirit. If there is but one religion, why do you white people differ so much about it? Why not all agree, as you can all read the book? Brother, we do not understand these things. We are told that your religion was given to your forefathers and has been handed down from father to son. We also have a religion which was given to our forefathers and has been handed down to us, their children. We worship that way. It teaches us to be thankful for all the favors we receive, to love each other, and to be united. We never quarrel about religion. Brother, the Great Spirit has made us all, but he has made a great difference between his white and red children. He has given us a different complexion and different customs. To you he has given the arts. To these he has not opened our eyes. We know these things to be true. Since he has made so great a difference between us in other things, why may we not conclude that he has given us a different religion, according to our understanding. The Great Spirit does right. He knows what is best for his children. We are satisfied. Brother, we do not wish to destroy your religion or take it from you. We only want to enjoy our own. And the contemporary witness is from the Reverend Dr. Duncan Littlefair's sermon, The Way, preached at Fountain Street, May 19, 1978. What then is the way for you? Any way you choose. Any way that pleases you, any way that helps you, any way that is in conformity with your tastes, with your culture, with your understanding, with your level of knowledge, with your interests. Christian, Muslim, Mormon, you name it. They are all equally valid. They are all equally invalid. They are all equally potentially good, and they are all equal in their potential for evil. You are a Christian? All right. Choose your own way. Roman Catholic? Does that suit your taste? Does that suit the kind of knowledge and understanding that you have? Does that satisfy your aesthetic delight? Does it move you, comfort you, strengthen you? Then choose it. If you want to be Protestant, that's your choice and taste. It's the way for you now. Baptist, Episcopalian, Methodist, Unitarian, who cares? They are all open for your choice. The only important thing is that you recognize what you are doing, that you are making a choice, and it's a choice for you. Find your own way and your own phrasing. There is no secret. There is no magic. There is no divine revelation. There is only the infinite and unending opportunity to know about life and to love it. Surely there is mystery enough in this.
Amen. Thank you, Duncan. Good morning. Henry asked me to read this ancient Navajo prayer, which we now know is something that his ancestors would have been familiar with. I walk in beauty. Beauty in front of me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, beauty below me, beauty all around me. I walk in beauty. In the house of long life, there I wander. In the house of happiness, there I wander. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, beauty below me, beauty all around me. In old age traveling, with it I wander. On the beautiful trail I am, with it I wander. In beauty it is begun, in beauty it is finished.
I was born in a taxi on the way to a movie. Think about that. Think about that scene. The taxi driver, my mother, me on the floor of the taxi. Mom never wavered from that story. It was 1951, and I was the love child of my beautiful mother and devastatingly handsome father. They were both in their early 20s and at the height of their beauty. He was an American GI stationed in the American zone of Salzburg, Austria, and the war was over and there was much promise in the air. It was a time of endless possibilities. Mom had already survived 5 years in a Polish concentration camp, starting at the tender age of 10. By war's end, when the Russians liberated Treblinka, where she ended up at the age of 15, and had already witnessed her mother's execution and countless other horrors, somehow she found her way back to Vienna. I still don't know that story because there were no buses, no trains heading that way. But with the help of the Red Cross and Catholic nuns who fed her raw liver, which she loved to the end of her days, she eventually reunited with her father, my grandfather, who had been released from a Russian gulag in Siberia. It's like a movie. By the time they reunited, he had married, again, a woman with 2 little girls, and there was no room for her in their tiny apartment. I entered my grandparents' life a few years later and had their unconditional love for the rest of my life. It was at this point that my mother found herself in beautiful Salzburg, surrounded by snow-covered mountains. It was the American occupation zone of Austria where my father and mother met, fell in love, had me, their love baby. Within a year, my father was transferred to Korea. Because of an existing army regulation, they could not legally marry. That didn't change in Austria until 1955, when Austria gained its independence. Shortly after his departure, word came to my mother that Staff Sergeant Henry Alvarez Hernandez had been killed in battle when his tank blew up. Faith. And life goes on. Eventually, I went to live with my grandparents in Vienna and started school. And in those days, after the war, everyone in Austria was Catholic. A priest came to our classroom at least once a week, and I even became an altar boy. Delicious irony. There were many other humorous moments that I didn't fully understand at the time. For example, I could never have striped pajamas. Mom worked in Munich. In time, my mother came to Vienna with a husband. an American soldier stationed in Bavaria, who adopted me and gave me his name. And I attended an American military school and learned English, even mastering difficult sounds like the. Faith. In 1960, a new adventure awaited us when my stepfather resigned his commission, and we left Germany to take a 10-day journey on a very large ship from Bremerhaven to New York City. To this day, I recall the excitement of entering New York Harbor, sailing past the Statue of Liberty, the noise of the city, the big cars, the yellow taxis. I was particularly fond of the taxis. And also new to me was Cantaloupe. Exciting stuff. My stepfather's family lived in Tennessee, in a small town outside of Nashville called Gallatin, now a suburb of Nashville. It was very hot and very sunny, and I tanned deeply and turned very dark. My memories of Tennessee in 1960. Catholic schools taught by sweet, loving nuns, and separate bathrooms for me, and separate water fountains for me. Back seats on the bus. No entrance to restaurants. The N-word was used a lot, both at me and at my very pale mother. It was confusing, to say the least. We didn't last long. In less than a year, she filed for divorce, and the two of us returned to Vienna, and the familiarity and comfort of my grandparents, and yet another school, and life as we had known it. Faith. But my mother was a survivor, which she had proved time and time again. A new husband, many new schools, lots of travel to military communities in Livorno, Ansbach, Stuttgart, Virginia, Arkansas, and finally Nuremberg, where I graduated from high school in 1971. I had earned a scholarship to Alma College in a state called Michigan. I couldn't find Alma on the first 4 maps. But in time, it was to become my personal ticket to a new life. And so I went by bus from Virginia with my feather bed comforter, a suitcase, and a winter coat. And after what seemed like days on a bus from Charlottesville to Detroit to Lansing and finally to Alma. And when I got out of the bus station, which doubled as a laundromat, where a very friendly lady called the college and someone picked me up, and the next 4 years would be very wonderful. My grandfather died that spring, and so ended another chapter. Faith. I did well at Alma, but in truth there was little else to do than to study. I didn't have a car nor know how to drive. So my focus was on good grades, scholarship, part-time jobs, and to take part in everything possible. I had a triple major, painting, world history, and German literature. At this point, I would like to say something about the many wonderful people who took me under their wing to guide, teach, and mentor me. Pat and Tom Smith, for whom I babysat in Germany, and who welcomed me into their home in Charlottesville the summer before I headed to Michigan. Jim and Jean Babcock from Oklahoma. He was the head librarian at Alma and gave me a job on the first day, cataloging the university's rare books collection because of my propensity for languages. And Mary and Peter Vandenberg from the Netherlands. Peter was the German department, for whom I read every German volume in the library in the next 4 years. We had fabulous discussions in his office. We all remained friends for decades after I graduated, and they all made me a better person. Faith. My next chapter started well. I fell in love with Anne, and we were married for 20 years. We had one daughter. I went on to grad school for a master's in art history and immediately started an internship at the Detroit Institute of Arts, where I became a museum professional. There were teaching appointments at various local universities, and I was offered the position of chief curator of collections and exhibitions at the newly expanded Muskegon Museum of Art. It was 1985. It was all a dream come true. I had grown up in the great museums of Vienna and Munich, the Kunsthistorische, the Albertina, the Hofburg, the Residenz, and so many others. Muskegon had an outstanding collection of art, including works by Hopper, Homer, Innes, and so many more. For the next 13 years, I curated more than 200 exhibitions, gave countless presentations, and added to the collection and started an active international art touring program, taking people around the world to 6 continents. I learned about working with museum boards, with hundreds of volunteers and members of the public. It was a very exciting life. Let me just throw a little story in here because this is important. When Amalia, my daughter, turned 10, she was the same age as my mother when her life stopped as she knew it. I felt it was time to capture that story for all of us, and I demanded that she share it with us. When you're an only son, you can demand. It was at this time, when my mother was 10, that she was put on a cattle train to Poland to points unknown, with her mother, and I asked Mom to share her story with us. It was our story, not just hers, and of course, at first, she flat out refused. But being her only child, we argued, and I threatened to cut her out of my life, as one does. And it took 2 weeks for her to come around and share her story. It just spilled out. And it was a turning point in her life because once she felt the relief of removing that burden from her heart and her head, it brought her a certain peace. It allowed her to share that story repeatedly with others, with grade schools and high schools and church groups and anyone who was interested in learning more. And word spread that a survivor lived in Spring Lake. I found thank you notes with drawings addressed to her. Dear Mrs. Chandler, thank you for telling us about Hitler. And finally, one day, when I had returned from one of my international art tours, she mentioned that a Steven Spielberg had come to see her. After more questioning, the reality was not Spielberg the man, but the Shoah Foundation that found her to record her story and put that story amongst their archives, where it is to this day. Life was good. Until it wasn't. Around 40, I began to realize that I was a gay man. And I had to come clean to my wife, my family, and most importantly, to me. We divorced, and there was a lot of Sturm und Drang. It was a very low time in my life, and I'm sorry for all the pain that I caused. People were hurt and shocked. Many shut me out of their lives immediately and completely. I made myself sick with stress, and especially in anticipation of telling my daughter, whose rejection I feared the most. She was 12 at the time, and so typical of young people, her only response to my confession was, duh. Friends made choices. Everyone had an opinion. But I was 40 and possibly had decades ahead of me. I found new and old friends and a great new job at Grand Valley State University, where for the next 23 years I grew and blossomed as Director of Galleries and Collections through 3 administrations. Faith. And then I met Tim. As 2 museum directors, we had a great deal in common, and on so many levels. And we connected and joined our lives together. And everything changed on so many levels. It was Tim who brought me here to Fountain Street Church. I love the community I found here. I immediately felt welcome. I love the diversity of people's backgrounds, former Jews, agnostics, fallen Catholics, Reformed Protestants, you name it. They could be found here. I love the magnificent structure with its historical references and unique stained glass windows, the sound of glorious music, which continues to this day, not in the summer. And of course, the words spoken from the pulpit. They often touched me deeply with their broad universal quality. It is meaningful, challenging, and inspirational. Don't get me wrong, it's not always ideal. There are times when the human drama behind the scenes became pure soap opera. Sometimes it's just best to stay at home, read the Sunday New York Times, and watch the CBS morning show. But I always return because characters move on, new faces come on board with new directions and new opportunities. And here I am 30 years later. Faith. I have one more story to share. A few years ago, Tim and I decided to donate our DNA to Ancestry.com, just to see what we might discover. And what we learned, again, changed our lives. As some of you may know, Tim was adopted as an infant. His story is wonderful and complex, and his to tell. Let it suffice that we now know that he has 9 siblings, most of whom we have met and liked. Thus far, we've learned nothing about my mother's side of the family, their Jewish origins in Budapest, not surprisingly, since we know that most of them perished in the Holocaust. My mother recently passed at age 94 with Alzheimer's. She died peacefully in her bed in a local nursing home. And for the past 10 years, she had no idea who I was. But it was my privilege to care for her and to be her advocate right here in West Michigan for the last 30 years of her life. And I have discovered, thanks to my daughter's advanced computer skills, that my father did not die in Korea. Instead, he lived a long and distinguished life in the military, married twice, had multiple children, and was one of 7 siblings. And again, thanks to my daughter's advanced computer skills, we have recently FaceTimed with half-sisters, my half-sisters, aunts and cousins in Texas and New Mexico. It is amazing and overwhelming. And I've learned that in addition to my 35% Jewish blood, I'm also 32% Native American, specifically the Chihuahua and Durango people who have wandered the regions of northern Mexico, Texas, and New Mexico for many centuries. And my grandfather was a real cowboy who passed at the age, wait for it, 104. Faith. Faith is my rock. And my rock is my family. Amalia, Scott, Josie, Layla, and of course Tim, my husband, my faith, my rock. Thank you for listening.
Please take a few moments to breathe deeply of the gathered spirit and ponder Henry's words. spirit of life and love and of connection that we find here with us in this time and space. We seek within ourselves the history that is pertinent to our present and our future, individually and collectively. We seek the wisdom to find our way forward hand in hand, no matter our attachments to or understanding of the past. We have only the present moment in which to be the people we wish to create. May we create well and together. Blessed be. Time for the offering. Our offering is divided half and half between the workings of the church and the workings of the community, and everything you give is very much appreciated. Time for some announcements. I have a couple of my own. I'll be gone this week. You may have seen in the beat. You can reach me if you need to. I'm not going to be that busy. So my church phone number and my church email are in the beat if you need to reach me. Let's see. I misannounced the date of the Croning clothing swap last week. It will be July 21st, not July 14th. But there is something on July 14th for you to take to heart, and that is a training session for a type of meditation that our friend Marcia, whose last name just went right out of my head, is going to present for us in room 109. So that is on the 14th, right after church. And then Renee asked me to remind you that there is a meet and greet in here with the artist of these pieces, Haley Chesluck, after the service, and there will be some snacks involved. If you want coffee, you can go out and get your coffee and come back and greet the artist. Let's sing together. Number 370. As we leave this space today, may we take with us all the love and compassion we find here to feed our souls in the days to come. May we see this fraught and chaotic world through a lens of peace, because only our peace will bring peace to the world. May we remember this place of hope and solace and return to its embrace. Go in love.